Okay, there is Dr. Biju showing the stone which is on the left side. It's about 2.5 centimeters long, an elongated one.
Only one stone on the left pelvic junction region.
Yeah, and you can show the outline of the kidney which you can see there. No, here. It's extended about 3-4 centimeters below the stone.
Yeah. You have given spinal anesthesia. We are going to position the patient now.
While cleaning, it is important to start from the urethral orifice and go all around. And most of the contamination is from the coliforms. So once it reaches the anal area, you should throw off the swab. So one of the problems in rural areas is sterilizing the various equipment. So you may notice that very often people only clean with the spirit. So while connecting the camera and telescope, it is important to remember that they're all done in the correct alignment. The 12 o'clock position is important to make sure that both are in 12 o'clock position. And also both are dry. If there is any liquid or fluid between the camera and the telescope, then it spoils the vision. So you need to make sure that it is dry. So the first thing probably you need to dry is take a gauze piece and dry both the telescope and the camera first. Okay, Dr. Biju is showing the cystoscope sheath, and that is the bridge that he is connecting. So you need to make sure that the path for putting in the stent is below, and it's rotated anti-clockwise while starting, and then to fix it, you have to turn clockwise. And now he's showing the telescope which he is fixing. Again, you need to be very, very gentle while pushing, because any small tilt can affect the vision. So here also, the movement is always clockwise to fix, anti-clockwise to remove. So now he's connecting the camera. So this various ways of connecting the camera depending on what make do you have. Here also one of the things to go by is that generally the wire of the camera falls down. So that will come around the 6 o'clock position. And so you make sure that 12 o'clock position on top. So you need to get into the habit of holding the camera in such a way that the 12 o'clock is always on top as far as the camera is concerned. But you can rotate that scope to go to 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock, whatever position you want. He's connecting the irrigating fluid now. Meanwhile, the nurse prepares the guide wire and opens the stent and takes out the pusher so that you pass the guide wire through a pusher. And white balance is generally related to the camera and the light source. If you're using the same light source, same camera, there's no need to do white balance every time. And the older generation single chip camera, they work better with analog televisions rather than the digital ones that we have. Okay. So you separate the labia, and again, you need to be careful about the various curves and gently insert the scope. Okay. He's in the urethra now, and okay, so there's a bladder neck. He's entering the bladder now. So the first place to look for is the interureteric ridge or the Mercier's bar. And once you enter the bladder, you can, if necessary, you can reduce the flow of the water, irrigating fluid. Okay, that's the bladder neck. Then you go, see here, so there you see the interureteric ridge. Then you go to either side. I think he is going to the left side first because that's where the stone is. So there's several ways to identify the orifice. One is that you can have various capillary blood vessels which is coming in and they meet. Then you can wait for the peristalsis to open the orifice. It'll be the muscles will split to have the orifice of the ureter. When there's no urine coming, it will be closed. But when there is a peristalsis and the urine comes out, it opens. See, sometimes the area around the orifice is inflamed because of pus coming because of the stone, or there may not be much urine, there will be inflammation. But you need to be very gentle while pushing the guide wire, because even the guide wire can cause a little bit of damage. Even if it takes time, it's better to wait and identify the orifice, then try and pass the guide wire. Yeah, somewhere around there the orifice should be. There you can see it. Just wait there till the peristalsis comes. Yeah. Little bit to the right. If there is difficulty, another option to consider is to use of a hydrophilic guide wire. There it is. Good. So once you find the orifice, you need to align the scope so that if the orifice is there, the scope has to be in line with that. And then slowly, centimeter by centimeter, you need to put the guide wire. And stop pushing the moment there is some resistance. Then it's very important to slowly take out the pusher. So you need to push 1 centimeter and pull it out, push, pull like that. Right. So while Dr. Biju is pushing the guide wire, the nurse is pulling it out. So the next step is to put the DJ stent. Again, you need to make sure that the guide wire is taut. If it has these curves and bends, it will be difficult to push. So some of the stents have one end which goes in first is sort of tapered. So that end needs to go in first. And the DJ stent has a double coiling J-shaped structure which keeps a memory so that it doesn't slip out once you place it in. But then we use a guide wire to straighten it and then pass it. And then once you pull the guide wire out, the coiling will take place again. So I think if we can see, you can see what's happening in the. So while pushing, again, we need to make sure that you hold very close to the place where you're pushing. So now the stent is almost reaching near the orifice. So here, there is a slight curve. So you might have to use a little bit of force and push it in. And at that time, it's better to have the scope as close to the ureteric orifice as possible. So once it goes there, then the next thing you need to do is use the pusher to push the stent. So one way of keeping it taut is to hold the guide wire close to the body so that you don't move. If you keep it here, the chances of moving is higher. But if you keep it close to your body, it doesn't move much. Again, it's important to remember that as far as possible, all these curves should be as straight as possible. And keep gently pushing centimeter by centimeter. So sometimes if there is any difficulty, you can pull out the guide wire a little bit by about 1 centimeter and then push. So now it's enough almost. You can see the stent and the pusher. So then you need to pull out the guide wire. And again, you should not use much of a force, gently. All the movements has to be very gentle. Okay, so now you can see the stent coiling in the bladder. The way it is going to look as though it has probably gone right inside past the stone into the renal pelvis on the left side. And you see the rest in the bladder. Vijay, can you also try and pass the guide wire into the other side to make sure there are no stones in the other orifice? Because just one functioning kidney is enough to have normal creat. If the creat goes up, it probably means that either currently or earlier there was some obstruction to both the ureters. Okay, that's the orifice. This side is, as you notice, is much easier to identify because it's a normal side. Probably there is no stone and there is no obstruction. And if you wait for a long time, you'll see the orifice opening because of the peristalsis, which brings the urine from above. This is the orifice on the right side. But again, you need to remember that this side is right now normal. You don't want to cause more problems. So you need to be very, very gentle when you're trying to pass the guide wire. So earlier, traditionally, people used the open-ended catheter and then pass the guide wire over it. But then you need another open-ended, the cost goes up. So what we do is we use the pusher. Is it going easily? If it goes easily and if you don't feel any obstruction, then there's no need to keep a stent. But if there is any doubt, it's safer to leave a stent on the right side also. Primarily because the creat is high and that is often due to block on both the sides. Small stones will pass. Almost 90% of stones or 98% of the stones less than 5 millimeters will pass. But they could have initially caused obstruction also. Thanks, Biju. So summarizing, this is a double J stenting done by Dr. Biju in Crofts Memorial Hospital, which is near the Bhutan border. And this is a patient who would have a big stone on the left side of the PUJ and also elevated creatinine. And this could have been probably because there was another small stone which is on the right side, which is blocking it, which made the creat go up. So after giving anesthesia, he cleaned and draped. And the first thing he did was pass the guide wire through the pusher. So that only a little bit, about 1 or 2 centimeters, is pointing out. But then first you do a scopy. And when you're doing a scopy, if you're having the pusher inside, you have to make sure that it's inside the sheath. Then once you go into the bladder, then you push a little bit so that you can see the tip of the pusher and then tip of the guide wire. And then look for the orifice. So the way to identify that, as she showed you, first look for the interureteric ridge. and then trace that laterally, and you'll find the orifice. So you need to wait for it if necessary for the peristalsis to open up the orifice. And very often it might be a little difficult to find on the side that there is a stone because of inflammation and a little bit of infection. So you need to be very sure. And if any problem passing it, you can use a hydrophilic guide wire, which is fairly smooth and goes in much more easy. And but here he was able to use a regular guide wire to go inside. Then you keep pushing it gently till you reach a place where it's a little difficult to push. At that point, you stop. So then it's important to remove the pusher without bending the guide wire. So what he did was he started pushing the guide wire and pulling the centimeter by centimeter. And then once the guide wire comes out of the scope, then you can hold it and take away the pusher. Then you load the stent. And usually sometimes most of the stents will have a tapering end in the front, and that has to go in. So again, when you're holding, this thing you have to make sure that there's no sharp curves. All the curves, whatever, they are gentle, and hold as close to the body as possible. And then push the stent. And while pushing, the same technique of staying near the orifice and pushing it centimeter by centimeter. And then once you're near the VUJ, because of the slight curve, you might have to use a little bit of force or jerk to push it in. And this time it makes sure that you have the scope very close to the orifice as possible. And then push it. So then once it's gone enough, then if you're happy, then you remove the guide wire. Then we generally prefer putting a catheter because we given spinal anesthesia. Anyway, thanks. Vijay, you want to say something? Now you can unmute and say.
Today we repeated creatinine actually came to 0.8. It's not 3. And it's a unilateral stone. The left side, that we use ureter extension. On the right side, I passed the guide wire, as you said, but there is no resistance. So I took it off. I did not put it on the right side. And then only the left side is censored.
Okay. What about the antibiotics you are given?
We have given ceftriaxone.
Okay. So again, in the antibiotic, especially if there is a renal failure, if the creatinine is high, you need to make sure that you titrate the dose of the antibiotic depending on the creatinine. And aminonucleic acid, you need to be careful because aminonucleic acid can be given, but it's generally safer to give only one dose because it can stay in the body for a long time. And we may not realize it. There's quite a significant amount of people who have deafness because of aminoglycosides.
We have not given aminoglycoside.
Yeah.
And we want to see the X-ray, sir?
Yeah, you can just show the X-ray and then we'll. Okay, good. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Welcome.